huh?
Hey guys, God bless you guys.
He is the senior pastor of Living Way in Maywood. And for those of you who don't know what Maywood is, if you notice I'm sweating up here, it's because worship is a full contact sport. If you're not sweating by the time you're done worshiping, you're not worshiping. You need to step up your game. Have a good time with Jesus. Anyhow, Andres, up in Maywood, it literally is where his church is. Across the street, there's like, actually around your whole church, there's like bad people.
Yeah.
Like dangerous people. And you've had like guns drawn on you in church and knives drawn on you in church. I mean, imagine
I've been shot at inside this church.
You've been shot at in
Yeah.
church? Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine and he's just the pastor, you know. He's the good guy. So Andres, tell us a little bit, because obviously, if you can't tell by the way he looks, you like came from a gang background, right?
Yeah, that's the story, man. And by the way, you guys, whatever we say is to glorify Christ. It's truly the testimony of Jesus in my life, you guys. It's His perfect love, it's His perfect grace, it's His perfect kindness. And so I grew up in L.A. I was born down there it's West L.A. on Rampart and 6. And then my mother, it was my mom. My father went to prison for about 18 years. It was my mom and 6 of us. And so we moved over to a city called Maywood, and that's where I started getting involved with gangs and drugs at the age of 9 years old. I would take off from 4th grade. I lived across the street from the school, so my mom would just kind of like watch me for a little bit. And as soon as I knew that she wasn't watching anymore, I would take off to the park. At 4th grade, you guys, and that's where I started getting influence with the guys from the gang and introduced to drugs and all that comes with the gang.
Wow.
So, yeah, 9 years old.
Wow. So you're just an elementary school kid.
Yeah,
like you could be going to this school right here.
Yeah.
And you were getting involved in drugs and.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. At 9 and 10, and then I got my corner when I was 11 years old, and I just pursued that lifestyle.
Mm. And then, I mean, how long were you in that lifestyle? From when to when?
I started at 9, and I got from 9 till I was 25 years old. So throughout those years, man, there was just a bunch of, crazy things, man. Sometimes there's people, they don't understand that lifestyle. And some people can be looking out from the outside, kind of looking in, and why don't you just get out of that gang? Why don't you just make changes? Why are you doing this to your life? But for me, it was a family. It was acceptance. It was just more than just, joining a gang. These were my friends. These were the guys that I was willing to die with and ride with. And my father was absent for throughout my entire life. And so finding, acceptance in this gang as a child was my family. And then, you kind of come to realize that it's wrong what you're doing. And this is not right for you, but there's already been bloodshed. You lost some of your friends. Some of your friends have been killed, and so you don't just turn your back against those things. And so you're kind of just, this is what it is. You kind of
what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it just becomes part of you. So it's not just joining a gang. This was my life. I was committed to it. I was willing to die for it. So I was 9 years old, and so I this is what I pursued. I started going to juvenile hall when I was 10, in and out every year from 1990 till about 94, 95, I was in and out every year out of juvenile halls. And then I ended up getting a stretch. I got arrested. I had 14 charges on me, 14 felonies.
Now, what's a stretch? Over here, that's yoga.
Yeah, stretch is doing anywhere, for example, instead of just going in and out of juvenile hall and camps, I ended up doing like a long-term a sentence. So I did 7 years. And I ended up getting sentenced to the California Youth Authority, which is like a prison for young adults, anywhere from the age of 13 to 25. So I did 7 years in there. I got out in 2002. It was in 95, then I got out in 2002, but I wasn't, going to change. I actually had, I felt bigger now and stronger and more educated with the gang. So my mentality was, I'm going to get out and I'm going to continue to do what I was doing before I got in here. And so now, it's kind of crazy. You get in there, you do some time, and it's kind of like all the younger homies, the younger guys, they look up to you. you did some time, and you're cool, man, and how was it, and all this, type of thing. And so I just started, I got out and I went right back to the gangs and started, recruiting the gang. And I had, man, I think I probably recruited maybe about 100 guys into the gang. Getting guys from different, cliques, tagging crews, and even skaters and guys that were just around, roaming around the streets. We would bring them into the neighborhood, kind of disciple them and teach them the ropes of a gang. And so at the age of 25, I was 25 years old, and I got arrested. So, like I said, I was involved with the gang, and I got arrested for 7 murders. And I figured, man, I'm through. I'm done, man. And so they take me in. I was arrested by the marshals, the feds, and so they were giving me life in prison. It was like double life plus 300 and something years. And so it was pretty much the darkest time of my life. I was in there. There was no hope. There was no, sense of even wanting to live anymore. So I was angry. I was bitter. There was hatred in my heart. I couldn't stand to look at my neighbor, and just with this burden, man, I'm never going to get out of this place again. So, going in there, I raised my hands to get involved with politics and the gangs in prison and all that. And so I was fighting in there, and I really thought about, what, I'm going to just kill my cellie, and that way they can just put me away for the rest of my life. And I don't have to see people anymore at all. I had this rage, this anger, this hate, that I got caught, and I'm never going to get out, and my life is ruined. My life is done in here for the rest of my life. So then I started feeling, like, man, what if I would have listened? What if I would have listened to my mother? What if I would have listened to those people that my mother brought over the house and told me about Jesus and told me about God? What if I would have done things differently? Maybe I wouldn't be in here. Now, I never really thought like that before. So I know now that was the work of God's Holy Spirit, really convicting me of my sin. And so I started thinking like that. And then I was asking myself, why am I thinking these things? Why am I showing a weakness like this? What's happening to me, I can do this. I can do life. I'll do it my way, right? So I was at a Supermax, which is maximum security up in Wayside. And they moved me out of that place, and they brought me down to the towers at the LA County Jail, and they put me in a single-man cell. So pretty much just slammed and locked away up by yourself. And it gets hard, you ain't got no one to talk to. It gets hard, And so when I first got there, someone had given me a Bible, and I had it in my personals. And so when they brought me out of Supermax and they brought me down to this a one-man cell, I had that Bible with me. And so in that cell is where I started kind of just, feeling like, what if? What if I would have listened? And yeah, this was wrong, and having this conviction. And so I remembered, the Bible that I had. So I said, I'm going to go look at the Bible. And I grabbed the Bible. And just within that moment, I just felt ugly inside. And I felt like an animal. And then I felt, convicted and just wicked, like a monster type of, just ugly feeling within me. I've been wrong before God. And where is this coming from, right? So I opened up the Bible, and through all these, emotions and feelings, I decided to pray. And I didn't know God. So I kind of prayed saying, the God of my mom, kind of like the Old Testament guys, the God of Jacob and the God of Abraham. Well, the God of my mom, I don't know if for real or not, but I'm not asking you to get me out. I just want to ask for freedom inside, because my mind was gone. My heart was bitter. There was hatred. After experiencing so much violence and so much bloodshed and losing half of my friends to death or to life in prison, it really, I was screwed, And so I just said, God, if you can help me and it kind of set me free from myself, from all this condemnation and all this that I'm dealing with in my mind. And so I prayed, and I just remember the minute that I opened my mouth, I started crying, and I just started weeping, and it was, a moment where I kind of, not that I knew God's presence, but I just felt a peace, that God was going to forgive me and God was going to set me free inwardly. And so I was just, praying and crying and weeping and sensing, you guys, like in cleansing that, there's assurance that however God does it, he was assuring me in my heart that he was that great, that loving, that good, that he would forgive someone like me. And so, because I didn't think there was forgiveness for someone that would, live the way that I lived. And so you kind of give up on life. And so that was the place where I gave my life over to the Lord. I responded not knowingly to the Spirit of God. Now I know that was the Spirit of God who goes out there and convicts people of sin. And so I was just convicted, man, and I was praying. And then I remember I only went to about 5th grade. I never went back to school. I didn't know how to read. So my reading was poor. And so I remember that day I read through the entire Gospel of Matthew, and I understood majority of it. Whoa, in my heart I was like, whoa. I remember closing the Bible, and I was like, no way. And not that I understood, in detail, regarding its history and its backdrop and, all those other views, but God was speaking to me. And so I surrendered my life to the Lord there. I was, like I said, this was maximum security. So now my neighbors are all killers. They're part of the Mexican mafia. They're cartels. These guys are facing a death penalty, life in prison. They're angry. They're just like me, How am I going to tell these guys that I was leading that I don't want to be a part of this anymore? Well, what do I do, Lord, Because I remember in the past, some guys that had turned to Christianity, we dealt with them harshly. So what do I do, Lord? And so I prayed, and I remember, just the echo of God's voice in my inner person. And God said this to me. He said, just like you served your gang, you're going to serve me in this place. And I understood exactly what that meant. It wasn't like a Bible verse, right? Even though that is a Bible verse in Romans chapter 6. Just like you made yourself available for unrighteousness, make yourself even now more available for the righteousness of God. So I understood that, man. I was willing to die for the gang. I was willing to do whatever I can to promote the gang. Because there's been times where guys had run up to me with guns and asking me what gang was I from. And I would respond, crazy and boldly. This is where I'm from. And there's been many times, where I was willing to lay down my life, to promote the gang. And so I understood that. So when they gave me my little 15-minute walk, they would give you a 15-minute walk once a week. And so I went out there and I went to every cell. Every guy that was there, I didn't skip one cell, but every cell I went and I told them about Christ. And I said, listen, the lifestyle that we've been living, this is not why God created us for. Listen, God came to my cell. He touched my heart. He made himself aware to me. And the gospel, Jesus, he's real. He forgives. He wants to transform and restore us. And listen, apart from God, there's no heaven. We need to turn away from this. And guys were like, what? What happened to you, bro? Some guys were like, ah, they were laughing. They thought I was clowning around. Said I wasn't playing, man. And so, and ever since, I've just been preaching the gospel. It's been going on 13 years now.
Yeah.
This would be my 13th year. So,
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord, man.
Now, what's interesting is you were facing those 7 murder charges, and God miraculously got you out of there.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to get out. It was actually 2 attempted murders and 5 murders, and I just said, what I wanted was an inner peace. I was looking for forgiveness. I was looking for, just that in my mind and in my heart. And what happened was that the guy that was coming and testify against me, he stopped coming to court. And so they could have kept me in there for years. They could have kept me, but by the grace of God, man, I got out. And, the judge, the DA, they just turned it over. They said, hey, you know what, all this, we're going to dismiss your cases. And they're still open, they don't close those cases. But the actual DA, not the DA, the actual homicide detective that was behind all this, he's actually my friend. He comes to church. So I said, you better not ever open up those cases again, bro. Listen to your pastor, man. But yes, it's been
Not only that, but you got guys at your church that you used to shoot at.
Yeah, there's a guy by the name Felipe, and I've had maybe about 4 or 5 different shootouts with this guy from corner to corner, and had an ugly fight one time, and I think he got the best of me that day. I hated this guy with all my heart, man. I would park in front of his house and wait for him to come home so I can take him out, but I never, God never allowed it, right? The last time I saw him was I was parked in the corner, and he had come home, and I kind of just crept, on the side of the cars on the sidewalk, and I just rolled up right behind him, put the gun behind his head, and I was about to kill him, but his little boy came running out of the car. So I kind of pulled back, and then his other kid came, and then his wife came out. And so I kind of I pulled away, and I said, well, next time, And so we left. And so I knew that this guy hated me. The next day, he came to my house, stood in front of my house, and he riddled my house with bullets. No one was there. I guess he thought I was there. I had gotten into an argument with my wife, and we ended up taking off. She went one way, I went another, and he came and stood in front of my house and just riddled my house with bullets. If I would have been there, he would have shot me, my wife, because all the bullets hit at the headboard of my bed. And so anyways, when the Lord sent me back to Maywood to plant a church there, I thought about this guy. What would happen if I run into this guy that hated me and I hated him? And so I started praying for him. And one day I go over to Walmart, and I'm with my wife and the kids, and I tell my wife, hey, honey, I'll be right back. I was going to the car for something. And I'm walking up the aisle, and here comes Felipe. And I saw him, and the moment he sees me, he clenches his face, and he balled up his fist. And I'm like, oh, man, Lord, he's going to hit me. And I just started praying. I said, God, be with me, Lord. And so I walked right up to him, and I stuck out my hand, and I said, Felipe. And he grabbed my hand, and I looked at him, and I'm just kind of tripping out. I'm like, hey, bro, forgive me for everything I've ever done to you, bro. And so he kind of went like, so you are Christian? I was like, yes, bro. And he goes, me too. And I was like, what? When did you get saved? And he tells me like a year and a half ago, man, bro, I was praying for you, bro, that long ago, bro. And so I hugged him. He hugged me. We started crying. We were praying. There was people around us that were like, what's happening, And so we started telling people, Jesus, the Lord, man. We were enemies, and we were excited, man. And so we prayed, and we cried there, and we just became friends. We've done some ministry together. Actually, our first conference, remember you came down? We took a picture of me and Holland with him. He came down with a truck that he still has. The truck is riddled with bullet holes that I left. And I was like, dude, you got to get rid of that truck, man. He's like, no, it's my favorite truck, man. It reminds me of God's grace. I said, get rid of it, bro. But yeah, it's just been a blessing. There's officers, some of the officers that I had shootouts with too, that, they come to the church from time to time. Just like I said, you guys, God's grace and God's love is perfect and merciful, man. And I am, as Paul said, I am what I am by the grace of God.
Yeah. Well, praise the Lord. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Isn't God good? Yes.
Amen.
Why don't you stand and welcome each other here this evening?